My name is Ashanti, and welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. We got some news for you. But let me remind you what the Taking Off the Mask podcast is. It's a place where men get real. Men of all ages and backgrounds come to this place to talk about these masks we wear. And what we are doing today, what we are announcing today, is something very special and important, I think, for you who are listeners and for anyone else who's going to be listening from now into the future. We're taking a little pivot. This is our 4th anniversary of this podcast. Maybe you can think back to where you were in the summer of 2020. Summer of 2020, we had our first youth program with young men online virtually. And those young men were the ones who helped create and kick off this podcast. It has been a dream of mine for a long time. And that summer program was their opportunity to put some work into action. And they helped build this infrastructure for what we were doing today, 4 years later. And, I think along the journey of this 4 years, I think I've been talking to so many different people in so many different professions, backgrounds from different countries. And we're so thankful for the more than 200 guests who have been a part of this show. Actually, 200. I'm way I'm underserving myself. That's 50 episodes a year for 4 years. Yeah, about 200 episodes. And one of the things that I've been actually thinking about along this 4-year journey is, where are we going next? I did my best to not get sucked into any vanity metrics, but you want the show to be meaningful. You want it to be powerful, and you want it to help people. That's what it's about. It's about how do we use voice and people's stories to inspire others. That's what the Ever Forward has been about since the beginning, 20 years ago. It's what the Million Mask movement is about, helping people with one picture and 6 words of self-reflection to recognize that there's so much more to me than people can see. With 6 words of just, here's what I'm really letting people see. Here's what I'm not letting people see. And when I write my words, and then when I reflect on what words I've seen from others, I get opportunity to see that, man, I'm not alone. That's what these conversations have been about. Men from different backgrounds, from different professions and careers. And today, what I want to announce is that we are going to be focusing on a mission of transforming education. Previously, the Taking Off the Mask podcast was conversations with men around the world about what we as men deal with and we don't get to talk about. We were talking about the metaphor of a mask. Now, the pivot of where we're going next is that we're going to be focused primarily on educators, having conversations with men who are in education, who are on the front lines of transforming schools, communities, around how we support young men and boys to be their best selves in schools. And we're going to still have these conversations around these masks, because I think it's really critical that when we start these conversations, we start on a foot of getting real. But the conversations are going to be rooted around how are we going to and how are we currently making moves to make sure education is reachable and accessible by all. It's going to start with some conversation with me and you, and what are the things I'm seeing in education that need some addressing. Every time someone brings up that they want to defund the Department of Education, you should know what that means. You should know what that would mean for not only your family and your kids and your community and your legacy, but what it means for kids all over the country. It is not a small thing. But if we're not careful, when we hear it, if we're like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know what they do, so let me just get rid of it. It is what we continue to see around the country when people said, because there's a book about a topic I don't like, I don't want to have it around anybody who I think should not have it. When we begin to take away our people's opportunity to learn, we begin to have a community who is ignorant, who has no knowledge, who is stuck in the past or stuck in a time that they would rather be living in. But as you know, according to what we know so far, there is no going back. We are not going back. And I think we have enough tools at our disposal to make sure that people are being seen about what's happening in education today more than ever before. I got to show some people some AI tools the other day, people who had never seen AI before. They never even heard of AI. I was almost shocked that the person was telling me the truth. What do you mean you haven't heard of it? And guess what? We are all in different worlds. I live in this world of education and knowledge and trying to figure out new knowledge. And when new knowledge comes, not running from it, but going towards it. I remember being in high school, getting an opportunity from Mr. O'Donohue to go to Washington, D.C. to learn about this new thing called the internet. I got to go to the Associated Press offices training young journalists on how to log in by dialing in. That screeching loud sound you used to hear when you dial in. I don't even want to try and make up the sound right now. I do want to do it, but I don't. It's going to be so off. And imagine the dial-up sound. You go in and you can get articles from the Associated Press. Like I got to go there. I was on the new school newspaper. I was a school photographer. I could go in and I don't think I can grab images back then, but I knew I could grab articles and stories. And then we can use those stories in our newspaper here in Oakland in the Media Academy. It was amazing. And I think back to like, what if I would have been excited about that opportunity? What if I been excited about what I just learned and taking it forward? Who knows where I would be today? But that wasn't my journey. I was an engineering nerd. I was into math and science. I wasn't really into that type of technology that was really getting me excited. But the opportunity had come where when I went to college and I was in the MESA program, the MEP program, and people would needed to get logged in, I already had a bunch of skills because I had just done it the year before. I had just traveled to a whole new state as a high school senior to learn how to log in and get these articles and download this information. It was a different skill set that I had under my belt. Why am I naming all these things? Why am I naming what I did in high school? Well, because the journey of education started way back for me. The journey of why I'm in education right now and where we're going next is clear that is a part of where my journey has taken me. If you know my story, you know I never wanted to be a teacher. This wasn't my plan. This was the plan of something bigger than me, and I was willing to take the call. Becoming a teacher was not a financial good idea. But I'm so glad that I didn't just get stuck in making the check. But today, the work I get to do is the work I feel I was put here to do. And so maybe you find yourself waiting. Maybe you find yourself waiting. Maybe you find yourself waiting for the next thing. And you know, our team, myself and Ryan, we've talked multiple times about what do we do next with this show? Like, what do we do? Do we just stop? Because it's not maybe hitting the numbers that we thought we were going to hit. Maybe do we just do something different? I'm like, we got to keep having these conversations. We have to keep having real conversations with people around the world, talking about these topics that are important. And as I think about not only the topics of having men have healthy conversations around our feelings and around what we are going through, I think education is the element that I am clear that is a part of my life in the future. It's a part of my current life. It's a part of what I'm going to be a part of. And the fact that I have a desire to transform education, it means that it's more work to be done. I'm no longer going to just sit around waiting. And thinking of waiting, speaking of waiting, because maybe you hear me using this word a lot, something rings out to me in one of my favorite books about waiting. Maybe you know what book I'm talking about, The Waiting Place. And this is the book that I'm talking about. Oh, the places you'll go. I don't think I read this when I was little. Maybe I heard it once or twice. I didn't know it. But as an adult, as a person who became an educator, this became one of my favorite books to not only gift to students for graduation or for life or for new journeys, but it became a book that also became really clear that was a part of my own journey. When I'm moving fast and I'm going through life and I'm going places, and sometimes you feel like you're stuck. And it's sometimes you're stuck. They talk about being stuck in a lurch in this book, but sometimes you're just waiting. You're waiting for the next thing. You're like waiting for the opportunity. You're waiting for somebody to call you in. You're waiting for somebody to tag you in. A wrestling kind of joke there. Maybe you're waiting for somebody to give you permission that you are amazing and that you should be doing the thing you're supposed to do. Who am I to be telling people about education? If you only knew what words, if you only knew what words are playing in my head, recording, old recording. Who do you think you are, Ashanti, to be trying to tell me about transforming education? Who do you think you are? Oh, they play loud and repeat. But I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not waiting for somehow the magic feeling to come that says you have enough to say. You've thought about this enough. You've been dreaming about this enough. You've been writing about this in your journal about this enough. You know about this enough to be able to help people navigate their way through what happens in our world when people are misinformed. There's the misinformation that gets passed around in the world, and then there's just a lack of knowledge. And I think I heard a quote somewhere that says, when there's a lack of knowledge, the people perish. I don't know where that comes from, but I do remember hearing it somewhere. But I'm going to talk to you about this places we'll go and the waiting place. And maybe you remember this, but I'll kind of catch you up to how the waiting place gets found. Because in the first line of this page, it says, you can get so confused. I've been an educator who's been confused, which is where Diary of a Confused Educator came from. I've been confused as an educator. I've been working hard every day, feeling like I can barely make ends meet and trying to figure out why does this profession take care of their people so poorly? That's a question I do have about education. And I have lots of confusions about education. But let me tell you about the waiting place before I jump into the next part. You can get so confused that you will start in to race down long wiggle roads at breaknecking pace and grind on for miles across weirdish wild space, headed I fear towards that most useless place, the waiting place. Here's the waiting place. Let me just let's see it so you can take it in a little bit. The waiting place, people waiting around, sitting around, standing around. Let me read what's happening in the waiting place. This is just for people just waiting for a train to go or a bus to come or a plane to go or the mail to come or the rain to go or the phone to ring or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or no, waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for a fish to bite or a wind to fly a kite, waiting around for Friday night, or perhaps waiting for their Uncle Jake or a pot to boil or a better break, or a string of pearls or a pair of pants or a wig with curls or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. You ever felt like you've been just waiting? No, that's not for you. Somehow you escape that waiting and staying. You'll find bright places where boom bands are playing. Hope you got some boom bands playing to get you ready for your next journey. I hope you don't wait too long in the place you may feel stuck. Where we're going next in the Ever Forward Club and where we're going in these conversations and this podcast, we are going to understand and learn about what is happening with our departments of education that people threaten to take away. Anytime somebody's threatening to take away something so often without good reason or without clear reason, you should check it out. And we're going to check it out. What are they trying to get rid of? And this is what we need to know. I'm clear that I was clear when I remember this last person in charge of education was doing all kind of evil things to make it hard for people to pay off their loans and making sure that people didn't get the loan forgiveness that they wanted to get. Like there was a lot of ugly things happening in education before. And then we moved into a new administration, and now where are we at? I don't know sometimes. I know that education is valuable and important for our people in this country. I know it's important for young people to be able to have an opportunity, and we need to know what's going on, and we're going to explore that. We're gonna call some people in some Department of Educations. We're gonna try and set up some conversations with people to understand what's going on. We're gonna let you know who we're reaching out to, who's responding, who's not responding. Because I can tell you right now, there are some folks in the Department of Education, not just on the national level, on the state level, who are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. I know that. Now, I'm not one who is like, we should take it away, but we do need to hold people accountable to the jobs that they are stepped into, that they were voted into, that they asked to be voted into, and they have to do their work. And we are going to explore that. And when people don't return our messages, now, I don't think who am I? I mean, it sounds kind of odd to be like, I'll let you know when people don't return our messages. That's not what I'm trying to say. I want to be really clear. Like, this is not about telling on people and shaming anybody. This is about, we have a Department of Education that continues to be threatened by powerful people. And if we don't make clarity about what those things are, what's happening in those places, so they're not susceptible to the whims of some powerful person who wants to shift some money from that place to that place, we have to show reasons for keeping them around. And this next chapter of Ever Forward, and this next chapter of the Taking Off the Mask podcast, we're going to take off the mask of education. We're not going to keep waiting for politicians to fix it for us. We're not going to keep waiting for school districts to fix it for us. We're not going to keep waiting for some teachers to say it's their fault, the reason our kids are not learning. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. Let me, we're about to jump into the next part of this. Our young people right now, many of them are walking around with crack in their pockets. And you might be like, what? What are you talking about? And a trigger warning for anybody who has an issue with crack. Any addiction that you think about is happening in our kids. And when people say kids are addicted to their phones, you may in your mind think, oh, it's a thing they take out and they want to be on all the time. That's one way of thinking about it. But if you've never been around an addict before, of anything, of food, of drugs, of alcohol, of sex, of internet, of whatever the thing may be that we would call it an addiction. I mean, we should probably look up the real definition of addiction. We should probably do that. The definition of addiction is from Oxford Dictionary. The fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity. Now, they use addicted in the definition of addiction. Come on, please don't be dumb. You can't do that, dictionary. Let me go to addicted, okay? Let's get down to the roots. Physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance and unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects. If you've never been addicted to anything, thank goodness for you. If you've never been around an addict, that is an even more blessing for you. But if as a person who knows what addiction is like, food, sweets, sugar, I know the feeling of trying to let it go and feeling the calling of it on my soul to get more. We need it. We can't operate without it. And having people in my family who are addicted to other things, I've watched good, loving, kind people make irrational decisions. I lost my godson due to an addiction, mental health issues, substances. This device that we're talking about, the addiction that I'm talking about is this device. Now, I love my phone, so I'm not really here to talk bad about phones. I am here to talk about what the phones are doing and what we don't understand is happening in this device. Now, before you heard me talk about phones, I pick it up and I'm like, hey, you get sucked into this phone and you're spending a lot of time in there. And I'll say something like, maybe hilarious or ironic about how these devices cause us to look for a validation in places. Those are definitely real things about the phones. But what I saw this summer in our academy this summer, I saw young men who I actually really like, who I really care about, using these devices and not being able to put them away. When I say not being able to put them away, it's almost like, hey, put it away. and less than 5 minutes later, sometimes less than a minute later, they got it back out. They're not like, I got it, and then I got it again. It's more of like the I don't know what you're doing. Like I can't tell that you're looking at something. I can't see the phone holding under your thigh because you're waiting till I turn around so you can check the message that just came in, because the vibration of that addiction is so connected to your brain that you can't let it go. That the call of the dopamine that is causing you to want more of whatever that was is so rooted into your soul. It is a physically and mentally dependent substance, unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects. It is, I need to check the message. I need to see who wants to see me, talk to me, hear me, give me some information. I want to see what notifications there are. That is causing so much challenges with our young people learning. And I'm talking about summer. So imagine like what's happening in a school year. We have work to do. Now, am I going to be talking all about phones in these conversations? No, but we're going to talk about this addiction. We're going to talk about what schools are doing. And we know that there's some states and some cities and some areas that are banning them. I heard stories in New York where students have to pay to lock up their phone at the bodega down the street from school so that because they can't go into the school with the phone. But I know what happens when you have a kid who is trying to, or pretending that they're trying to do some work, and they can't because every time that thing vibrates in their pocket, they can't get their brain off of trying to check it. And they have no idea what the teacher is saying. And so when the teacher finally says, put that thing away, then the kid's like, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? What? What do you mean? What are you supposed to be doing? I just explained it for the last 12 minutes. What are you supposed to be doing? And then I have to now take my ego out of the situation and try and explain it again. But it's not just happening one time a day. It's happening dozens of times a day. It's happening dozens of times a day, every period. And how are teachers going to teach when all they're doing is re-saying what they just said because the kids were locked into a device that had nothing to do with what they were learning? Okay, you can feel you can feel I'm passionate about this, right? But I'm gonna back off of it. I'm gonna come back to let you know where we're going next. So since this is our 4th year anniversary, we're so thankful for all of our listeners and people who have been a part of this journey with us. We have a few more episodes that will be in the older format. And listen, the old format would never go away. We will still be making masks with teachers and educators. But we're going to be focused on how do we transform education by educators who are passionate about this profession, and how do we make a difference? How do we help people understand what's going on in education? And listen, the masks are a part of the work. If adults and the people making decisions for kids don't know what mask we're navigating through, then we're going to continue making decisions based on some half information. We're going to keep making decisions based on who we think the world wants us to be and what we're supposed to do, as opposed to navigating what's really going on with us. So this next chapter of the Taking Off the Mask podcast, we are looking forward to you being on the journey with us. I don't know where your feelings are about education. I don't know what education has done for you, but just know that these conversations are rooted in what we're talking about around making communities safe for everyone, but in particular for our young men in our communities. Our schools are failing in so many ways. Schools are creating chaos situations because they're not addressing what's really going on with young people. One of our team members were at a school just yesterday doing some outreach around the Taking Off the Mask workshop and the Million Mask movement. And there was a fight. The administrator had to leave the conversation, go out, get the kids separated, bring them back into the office, put them in separate rooms. And that meeting had to end really quickly because that administrator then had to go and deal with those students. It's the second week of school, and we already got fights happening. Normally it waits at least a month when the new shoe smell starts wearing off. We can see that young people are not waiting anymore. And we can't wait till the drama happens on school campuses before we begin to be proactive around how do we learn what's going on with them. And listen, we believe and we've seen and we continue to see how the Million Mask movement helps those conversations become easier to have. when I realize that I'm not alone, when I realize it's not just me, when I realize that there are more people here going through what I'm going through, they just don't talk about it just like I don't talk about it. Well, now we get to make more moves. You are going to be a part of this journey with us. We are getting close to serving in this movement over 100,000 people. We're so close. And you're going to be a part of it. We're going to be inviting you to talk to your people and invite them to go make a mask. We're going to be inviting you to be along the journey as we're moving these needles forward of how we have a conversation about our emotions in a healthy way. That's where we're going next. So we look forward to you being a part of the journey with us. We thank you for everything you've done over these last 4 years, whether you're a follower who has been here since the beginning in 2020, or maybe you just learned about it by somebody who shared it with you, or maybe somehow the algorithm found us and connected us. We thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Please leave us a question, a review, a comment. Let us know how we can continue making this show meaningful and impactful for you. And really, as you have these conversations with educators and men around the world about education, we look forward to you being on the journey with us as we continue to transform education. That's what we're going to do. That is what we are going to do. Thank you so much, folks. We look forward to seeing you real soon. Thank you for being a part of the Taking Off the Mask podcast. And just stay tuned for what's next. And we'll be talking to you real soon. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye now. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie and graphics by Kelly Wong. Guests are managed by Dan Paloma, and the podcast is edited by Samuel Matingo. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast, and for every guest that has been a part of the show, you are now a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is brought to you by the Ever Forward Club, and if you like what you've heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share this with someone. We look forward to having more conversations that matter, and please remember, there's more to you than anybody can see by just looking at you.